It was the case that had the world watching.
A mega pint.
Hollywood star Johnny Depp sued his ex-wife Amber Heard for defamation. Depp claiming Heard made up allegations that he abused her.
He got so angry at me, he slapped me across the face.
Depp claiming he, in fact, was Heard's victim.
She threw the large bottle, and it made contact and shattered.
Two Hollywood stars squaring off in a courtroom in Fairfax County, Virginia. But it was Johnny Depp's legal team that took center stage.
Your lies have been exposed to the world multiple times, right?
I haven't lied about anything.
Two women, under 40, Camille Vasquez and Jessica Meyers, associates at law firm Brown Rudnick, taking the lead on the trial's most important witnesses.
You mentioned that Ms. Heard would use information you gave her against you like a weapon. Can you explain that a little bit?
Now they'll reveal what really happened behind the scenes and talk about their legal strategy, the metoo movement, and what comes next as Depp and Heard appeal.
Good afternoon, Mr. Depp.
You weren't scared of him at all, were you?
Mr. Depp, how did you feel about your father when he left?
The evidence will show that was a lie.
I was in such shock and
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
My name is Camille Vasquez. I want to thank you deeply for your time and your service.
Welcome to Law and Crime Presents, the women behind Johnny Depp's victory. I'm Angenette Levy. We covered Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard for you, gavel to gavel. And now we are sitting down with two of the women who became a force on Depp's legal team about how they came to work together on such a high-stakes case watched by millions around the world.
When Johnny Depp's defamation case against Amber Heard began, he'd already sued his former business managers and his former lawyer, accusing them of mismanaging his money. Then came the defamation suit Depp filed against Amber Heard.
We, the jury, award compensatory damages.
The jury sided with Depp, awarding him more than $10 million in damages for the op-ed that Heard wrote in the Washington Post in 2018, saying she had become a public figure representing domestic abuse 2 years prior, around the same time she obtained a domestic violence restraining order against Johnny Depp. So how did this legal team that made such a splash come together? And why did Johnny Depp want to go through a second trial?
Well, Camille and Jess, how are you two doing since the trial?
Very good. Glad to be back together.
Yes.
I'm really curious about how you guys assembled this legal team, because you had Ben Chu, who worked on the TMG lawsuit, and then you guys somehow came into this.
Well, I've actually worked with Ben since the beginning. We both came from a different firm, not together, but we came to Brown Rudnick and he brought the Johnny Depp cases. I've worked on all of Johnny's litigation that our firm has handled, and this obviously was an extremely personal case for Johnny, and Ben and him asked me to join their team shortly after the complaint was filed. And then I was specifically looking for other female litigators. It was important to me to have female perspectives on this case, and I had heard wonderful things about Jessica, that she was a really fantastic writer, strong writer, and we tapped her to join the team.
I want you to tell me about why you felt it was so important to have female litigators.
Well, I thought that women bring an interesting perspective, especially to the issues that we were facing in this case. It's in a lot of ways a Me Too case, and I thought that having a female perspective and a voice and a different set of eyes on the issues in this case was important.
And Me Too was obviously a big part of this case and continues to be in the aftermath.
You know, I think that's unfortunate. I think that this was a case where she had her day in court. It didn't go her way. And what I've always said, and I think universally we've said, domestic violence doesn't have a gender. And what this case showed, I believe, is that it was Mr. Depp, in fact, who was the victim of domestic violence in this relationship.
Jess, how do you feel about that?
I realized that there were very difficult issues that we would face when this ultimately got to trial. But once I was involved and saw the evidence, I never had one doubt that we were on the right side of it.
The trial in Fairfax County, Virginia, came more than a year after Johnny Depp lost his lawsuit in the UK against The Sun. The tabloid published an editorial by Dan Wooten, who questioned why J.K. Rowling would cast a, quote, wife beater in one of her films. The Sun's star witness, as it defended itself against Depp's libel claim, Depp's ex-wife, Amber Heard. Justice Andrew Nichols wrote in a 129-page decision that he believed Heard's claims of abuse were, quote, substantially true, so the Sun won. But in Virginia, Judge Penny Ascarati denied Heard's request to dismiss Depp's lawsuit, writing she didn't agree with Heard's argument that Depp was able to fully and fairly litigate the UK suit. In the UK trial, Depp wasn't suing Heard. But in Virginia, Depp sued Heard for her words in the Washington Post piece.
A lot of people don't understand the differences between that case and the Virginia case.
Well, it's, dramatically different, right? We're talking a completely different country with different laws, different procedures. And I think the major difference is that Ms. Heard was not a party. And that's really important because when you're not a party, you have different disclosure obligations. And when I say disclosure obligations, I'm literally talking about the evidence that's submitted that the court considers. It was also not a jury trial. It was decided by one judge. So I think that there were really dramatic differences in the testimony, the evidence that came in, and frankly, the issues that were considered by that particular court.
One other real, I think, significant difference is that there weren't direct examinations.
That's also correct.
So when a witness took the stand, they were only being cross-examined. They weren't up there telling their story. They were just saying, no, that's not true, or yes, ma'am. They were answering leading questions that was asked by an adverse attorney. And right. So there wasn't the opportunity that there was here to sort of give this more narrative testimony about their experience.
That's very true.
With a different trial in Virginia comes a new legal team with different ideas and some new evidence. Coming up next on Law and Crime Presents, the women behind Johnny Depp's victory, Camille Vasquez and Jessica Meyers, tell us about how they came to handle the testimony of the most important witnesses in the case. Welcome back. A number of witnesses testified for both Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Think actress Ellen Barkin and British supermodel Kate Moss. But really, this trial would likely come down to who the jury believed most, Johnny Depp or Amber Heard.
And when you say violence, what are you referring to specifically?
Miss Heard, in her frustration and in her rage and her anger, she would strike out. It could begin with a slap.
Jessica Meyers graduated from Boston University's School of Law in 2015. A mere 7 years later, she was in the middle of the highest profile case of her career. Johnny Depp would become the first witness she'd ever questioned at a jury trial.
Mr. Depp, how do you feel about the intimate details of your life being aired in this process?
It's quite exposing.
When we talked to Ben, he said that they tried to match the attorneys with the personalities of the people they were examining. And so you were paired with Johnny Depp, who was basically the star witness for his case. I mean, really, along with the audio tapes, I think. Yes. So when were you asked to handle Johnny Depp's testimony?
It was maybe about a month before the trial. We were considering who would handle all the witnesses. This is around the time that I think we just determined that Camille would be handling Ms. Heard's testimony. And Ben asked me if I wanted to do it, and I said, of course. How could you possibly turn that down? And while it was daunting, at the time we had been working very hard, and I knew how supportive this team was.
Johnny Depp testified over 4 days.
What have you lost as a result of Ms. Heard making these allegations against you?
Nothing less than everything.
And Depp faced a tough cross-examination by Amber Heard's lawyer.
You found that drugs are the only way to numb your pain, right?
They've always been a medicine for me, yes.
But it was the way that Jessica Meyers ended the redirect of Johnny Depp that drew praise.
The abuse thing is we've got to deal with that, yeah. And why did you put that out there?
I did not. You forced me. Your team forced me to.
Meyers played an audio clip of Depp and Heard talking after Heard had obtained a restraining order against Depp in 2016. Heard challenged Depp to tell the world that she had abused him.
What kind of mineral spirits thrown at my nose?
You can please tell people that it was a fair fight and see what the jury and judge think. Tell the world, Johnny. Tell them, Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, man, I'm a victim too of domestic violence, and
yes.
It's a fair fight. And see how many people believe or side with you.
And what did you say in response when Miss Heard said, "Tell the world, Johnny. Tell them, Johnny Depp, Johnny Depp, a man, I'm a victim too of domestic violence"?
I said, yes, I am.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
You ended with a bang. I mean, and it was just, it was kind of almost like a mic drop moment, for lack of a better term, with that audio clip.
Yes.
Did you guys discuss that that's the way we were going to map this out?
Yes. Yes, we did.
Yeah.
I think while obviously some of the questions, we wrote individual sections of pretty much all of the examinations, where we would go, what evidence we would use, what recordings, what documents, that was all really a team discussion and signed off on by everyone.
Another big decision to be made: who would cross-examine Amber Heard? That assignment went to Camille Vasquez.
Could we unredact
Your Honor,
them so we could get context?
That's how it's in evidence.
That's how it's in evidence.
Next question.
Well, the metadata next to it is so that
Ms.
to
Heard,
avoid this
Ms.
sort of
Heard,
confusion.
there is no question pending, and I would appreciate it if you wouldn't be making argument to the jury.
Sorry, I
It's
thought you had
inappropriate.
asked me about it.
No, I didn't ask you about anything.
How did you all make the decision that you were going to be the one that cross-examined Amber Heard? I think it was expected that it would be a woman.
I had the privilege of deposing Amber for one day. Ben handled 2 days of her deposition in January. And at the end of that, I think it became clear to the team that I was more effective at eliciting the type of testimony we needed from her. And so it was, really a foregone conclusion by the time we started preparing for trial that I would be the one doing her cross-examination. Really, the cross-examination was a battle, and it was something that we prepared for, but there were a lot of unexpected things that transpired during that cross-examination. Please,
What was
try
your
to answer
question?
my question. Sitting here today, you have not donated the $7 million, donated, not pledged, donated the $7 million divorce settlement to charity.
I use pledge and donation synonymous with one another.
But I
the same
don't.
thing.
Ms. Heard, I don't use it synonymously.
That's how donations are paid.
Ms. Heard, respectfully, that's not my question.
Credibility was crucial. The question the jury had to answer was what Amber Heard wrote true or a lie, and was it written to hurt Johnny Depp?
It's not about Johnny. The only one who thought it was about Johnny is Johnny.
But later in the trial, during Heard's rebuttal case, her story changed.
I know how many people will come out and say whatever for him. That's his power. That's why I wrote the op-ed, is I was speaking to that phenomenon. How many people will come out in support of him and will fall to his power? He is a very powerful man, and people love currying favor with powerful men.
There was that moment, and it stood out to me, where she said, "I wrote this because of his power."
Right.
What were your thoughts when she said that?
I mean, I thought about really capitalizing and underlining that for the jury when she said it, but I thought it was best to just let that sit there for a second. So if you go back, you'll notice that I actually paused before I asked my next question. And that was me, two things, trying to decide whether I was going to put, a big underline and bold that statement, or if I was just going to let the jury hear it. Mm-hmm. And I chose letting the jury hear it.
Throughout the trial, members of the legal team were sometimes up until 5:30 in the morning, prepping for that day. You could see them passing Post-its back and forth during key testimony, even chiming in on objections.
Objection, lack of foundation.
Along with Johnny Depp's testimony, the team felt Heard's testimony was key to winning the case.
I think a big turning point was actually at the end of Amber's direct examination. I don't think she did herself any favors. I think that we universally thought that.
Up next, the change in Johnny Depp throughout the trial and his chances on appeal when Law and Crime presents The Women Behind Johnny Depp's Victory returns.
With each passing day, as more evidence was presented on live television and word spread that the trial was being held in Virginia, the number of Johnny Depp supporters that gathered outside of the courthouse grew.
Clear path.
Depp's lawyers also gained a fan base. On June 1st, after more than 12 hours of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict.
Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, yes.
Johnny Depp won all three of his claims against Amber Heard. The award, $10.35 million. The verdict meant the jury believed that Heard lied and did so with actual malice.
The claims against Johnny Depp are defamatory and unsupported by any evidence. We are grateful, so grateful to the jury for their careful deliberation.
I've mentioned this on the air several times. I don't know Johnny Depp. I only knew what I had seen in interviews with him as I prepped to cover this trial. But I did notice, and I refer back to this a lot, that there was a TikTok video that our network made of our first day of covering this. And he kind of had a sad, bewildered look on his face the first day or so. But it seemed like that changed as the trial progressed.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is a very stressful, intense moment in anyone's lives. Now, times that by, 1 million? This is a public figure. This is someone that has lived his life in front of cameras always, right? I think for him, he was under a tremendous amount of pressure, especially the first week. He was nervous, as we all were. But I think after opening statements, after we started the case in chief, right, after we put on the first witnesses, I think that he started trusting in the process a bit more and becoming more confident in what we were doing together, all together. And yes, I noticed that as well. His mood definitely lightened, and I think he, really enjoyed collaborating with us. And he was a key collaborator. I mean, yes. Every break, every lunch, when we would come back from court, every day, we would see him. We would go through the day, we would talk about the next day, we would get his perspectives, we would, and he does have an amazing ability to recall details from years past. And so, his insight into this trial was fundamental. I mean, we couldn't have done it without him.
I know you guys went to Europe. I saw the videos on social media of you at his concert with Jeff Beck. So how is he doing now?
He's great. He's so great. He's happy. I see him, there's a lightness to him. Yes. We were talking about that. There's such a lightness to him now. He's free. He finally was able to tell the world his side of the story, and this jury believed him. I mean, they validated what he's been saying to us for years.
It was such a lovely thing to just see him doing what he loves with people that he cares about after this, what I can only imagine was a traumatic decade or so.
While Depp won all three of his claims against Amber Heard, he was found liable for one of three of Heard's claims, for the words of his lawyer, Adam Waldman, to the Daily Mail.
This was an ambush, a hoax. They set Mr. Depp up by calling the cops, so Amber and her friends spilled a little wine and roughed the place up, got their story straight under the direction of a lawyer and a publicist, and then placed a second call to 911. Did you make those statements?
I believe I said that, yes.
When can we expect something to be filed by you all on the appeal? Because people may not really realize it, but Johnny Depp was found liable for defamation for the words of his lawyer.
We're hopeful, right? There's not a lot of case law in Virginia on this particular very nuanced legal issue. So we're hopeful that the court will take it into consideration and rule our way. I think the jury's verdict on this point is important to highlight, because there were two other statements that they did not find Johnny liable for. And those two other statements really went to the heart of this is made up, right? These allegations are untrue. The one statement they found liability on was very fact specific, and I can see why the jury maybe found liability for Johnny on this specific statement, because of the fact that it was so fact specific, right, about relating to one incident, May 21, 2016.
You've been made a partner. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That's very exciting.
Yes, very well deserved.
Oh,
thank you.
I mean, what's next?
At this point, I'd like to maintain as much normalcy as possible in my life. So what's normal to me is I'm an advocate. I love what I do. I'm really lucky I get to do what I love and work with people like Jessica and Sam and Casey, who's here, who's my paralegal, legal assistant, really our support. We would not have been able to win if it wasn't for Casey. And, you know, I just want to continue doing really good work for people that need my help and that I feel are deserving of it. And that's what I get to do every day. So what the future holds, I don't know. I mean, you're right, there are some opportunities to do different things in media, which is in your world. We'll see. We'll see what comes next. No decisions have been made.
Well, I have to say that working with this team in particular has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my career. And so I just want to keep doing that. I don't ever want to go into battle without these people.
That's it for Law and Crime Presents, the women behind Johnny Depp's victory. I'm Angenette Levy, and we'll see you next time.